I am pleased to have with me today Lawrence Schwartz. Lawrence is Senior Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer with Aspen Tech. Lawrence, thanks for being with me today.
Oh, pleasure to be here and be in person again. So
Yes,
thanks for having me.
Absolutely, thank you. Yeah. So big news for Aspen Tech these days. There's a recent transaction that you closed, and we keep hearing about something called the new Aspen Tech. What can you tell us about that, Lawrence?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. It's been keeping us busy. So back in October, we announced this transaction with Emerson. And as part of the transaction, they are doing a 55% stake in Aspen Tech, so a majority ownership. And they're also delivering some of their businesses to us. So one of them is SSI Incorporated, which came over as part of the transaction. Another is part of their E&P business as well. And when we bring in those two businesses into our portfolio, we're actually almost double in our size as a company. And so it's pretty exciting from that angle. And it does a number of things for us. First of all, it gives us more scale and flexibility. So if we think about the different markets that we're in, it extends us in some of the markets that we play in today. So when we got the part of the E&P business, we've renamed that the subsurface science and engineering space. And so if you think about the exploration upstream, we have more capabilities in kind of that part of the energy spectrum. And then OSI focuses more on the transmission and distribution. So we've got more view on that as well. So some adjacent markets. We also have a commercial relationship now with Emerson that has really been enhanced as part of this. So different markets that we play in, like wastewater and pulp and paper, where they have additional strengths, we can bring those to bear on some of those markets and have a wider view as well. And then it's really exciting in terms of just the amount of growth that we can do in terms of organic and inorganic transactions as we grow the business. And then what's really interesting going forward is, and you hear about it at this conference, other places as well, is as we think about the energy transition, right, and what we can do there. More capability there. So you think about the things that you can do in subsurface and engineering, all the things that you can do below ground to do carbon sequestration, right? So we have additional capabilities there. If you think about the future of the electrical grid, right, and bringing in all these renewables, now that T&D space becomes much more important as well. So a lot of elements to this transaction, and excited to be able to close on it back last month. So.
Good. Okay. Yeah. So the theme of this conference, of course, is about sustainability. Yeah. And I know AspenTech often talks about the dual challenge and addressing customers' challenges. What is this dual challenge, and how is AspenTech helping customers?
Yeah. So the dual challenge is an interesting one. So when you think about, there's a growing population, of course, and there's growing needs in that population for basically a better way of life, right? And that's going to continue, of course, over time. And we're trying to deal with that, or help our customers deal with that, because that's running up against the limitations that we want to have on climate change, the 1.5 degree targets in other areas. So that's the tension that we're helping our customers think through. And it's particularly poignant, just to take one example, in the energy sector, right? I mean, the energy needs are going to grow 50% by 2050, right? A big part of that is going to be things like electrification as well. So there's all these challenges. So today in our kind of traditional customer base, a lot of the energy and chemical companies, they think about, how do you use software not just for increasing profitability and efficiency, but how do I do that for increasing, or rather decreasing, the impact I can have on the environment, decreasing the amount of emissions that I can have. So we've helped customers with that. And then with some of these new capabilities, new companies that have joined us from Emerson, again, we get the capabilities to do things like geothermal, right? Bring in those types of energy sources. If we look at the grid and what we can do with the OSI technology, bringing in all sorts of renewables into the transmission and distribution space, and as well as how do we bring things like electrification to the plants and kind of reduce emissions that way. So lots of different ways that we can help customers with the traditional kind of growth problems, but also the challenges of the environmental sustainability.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about sustainability. In core business segments of AspenTech has always been energy and chemicals, and there are a number of pathways that customers can use in order to realize and lower their own carbon footprint, or decarbonize, or even thinking about things like circular economy and reducing or eliminating plastic waste. Can you give me some examples of how you're helping customers today meet those objectives?
Yeah, no, there's a lot of different ways when you think about software, when you think about digital that our customers are engaged in, right? And so first it starts with really being able to kind of measure the impact that you have, right? Can you see where the challenges are across your enterprise? Do you have that visibility, right? So that's part one is, do you have a good insight into everything across the enterprise? The second part is this traditional work that we do with around efficiency, right? How can you reduce emissions at all different parts of the chain, right? And so that's an area that we've always helped customers with. Another is you go through all this work and effort and you start reducing emissions, and then you want to avoid kind of losing all that with a potential failure, right? As you know, if a plant were to go down and come up, not only do you have potential safety concerns, which are always number one, but you could have a huge environmental impact. So how do you get ahead of that? Use things like machine learning and understand a failure before it could happen, right? And getting ahead of that. Now with all these different types of energy sources coming in, there has to be more resiliency, both in traditional plants as you bring in new feedstocks, so the flexibility to manage around that. If you think about the grid, bringing in all different new sources that are not as constant in how they run is a real challenge. If you want to introduce localized energy back into the grid, that becomes a bigger challenge, so helping customers with that. And then the last part is things around advanced technology, right? Where are we going? So you talk about the things that we can do around full circularity, right? And that's an interesting, you heard Pure Cycle earlier today was a great keynote there. And certainly that's an area that we think about as well. So one of the things that, as you look forward, chemical recycling, right? How do you model that effectively? How do you make sure that companies can do that in a cost-effective fashion? That's something that we're starting to help companies with and associations with as well. I know last time we talked about the Alliance to End Plastic Waste. That's one of the areas that we can offer them as part of our membership, some of those insights to do, and we help them with some of those bigger projects as well.
Okay, yeah. Before we close out today, Lawrence, I wanted just to circle back and talk about AI. So AspenTech has been a leader in being able to build capability in artificial intelligence and helping your clients and customers.
Yeah.
So a few years ago, you made a large acquisition, a company called Nubo, and building capability internally and a number of homegrown applications. What's happening in terms of the AI space? Because I think AspenTech introduced something called the AIoT Hub. So can you just give me just a high-level overview of what that is?
Yeah, so it's when you think about an AIoT Hub, there's a lot of tools out there and capabilities that people use to really figure out how to apply AI in their environment. Data scientists are looking to kind of pull this in from all different areas, right? But a foundation for that, kind of like a studio, if you will, or a palette, right, is important so that when you have something to work with, you're not starting from scratch, right? A lot of times data scientists could spend more than 50% of their time just gathering the data, collecting it, cleaning it, pulling it together. So an AIoT Hub gives you that flexibility and ease of use to really pull in all the different data sources, get them ready, and then run all sorts of AI applications on top of that. And it goes back to, how do I use the cloud effectively for that? How do I think about using a traditional historians, when all these different sources are coming together for a lot of our customers, and that's where the AIoT Hub can offer a lot of value.
Well, that's great, yeah. So Lawrence, thanks for being with us today. We really look forward to watching the developments of AspenTech in the near future. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks again.
We've been speaking with Lawrence Schwartz. Lawrence is Senior Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer with AspenTech. Thanks for watching.